on video. Stand by for audio. All right. Good day. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Live the Fuel show. That's right. We're still rocking it here in 2019. This is January. And yes, as always, we've got another new guest co-host for you. And I'm excited to bring this gentleman on because he and I tried connecting and then we couldn't connect. Then we connected again. And now we're ready to rock out with you guys because this guy's coming from a different time zone. We're going to chat about that. I literally think it's an entire day ahead or behind, but he'll be able to help clarify that. But this gentleman knows a little bit about branding and marketing. So that's why he and I are going to have some fun because you know how much I love it. And from a young age, he learned how to sell and negotiate business by getting haggled by Russian vendors. And his family moved here from Poland to the U.S. to escape communism. So that's a huge part of his backstory. And his parents took any job they could. I love the hustle to survive. And that's definitely taught him a lot. But seeing all of this as a young man motivated him to never want a job and keep moving forward as an entrepreneur, publisher, salesman, and one of the top Polish, get this, hip-hop artist people. So without further ado, I got to get this guy on. Tom Libelt, welcome to the show, sir, Mr. Hip-hop artist from Poland.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
What is up with that? I mean, you and I were chatting right before he recorded. I'm like, I'm not bringing it up until do the intro because I'll lose it. So
the hip-hop thing.
I didn't know that was a thing. I mean, obviously hip-hop exists everywhere, but I mean, is that huge in Poland?
It's almost like the national music, at least when I was like in my teens, you know, so it was huge. Like when I first started listening to hip hop, no one knew what that was. Like there was a movie called Disorderlies with the Fat Boys in it.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude. I haven't seen that movie in years. That is awesome. That movie was ridiculous.
And that's the first.
We're probably dating ourselves a little bit.
We are dating ourselves. I think I was like 6 or 7, but I seen that movie and I just didn't know what hit me. Like it came on again. And I watched it again because my dad had it on a VHS, and I'm like, what is happening here? And then we had this guy that was like in rock music. I was about 8 or 9, and he made a hip hop song in Polish.
Okay.
And it's just like it stopped me in my tracks. You know, like everyone just used it as like a novelty thing, right? Like, oh, he's talking instead of singing. But to me, it was like, no. I was like, this is weird. This is good. I like this.
Yeah, there's a flow to it, right?
There was a flow, yeah. And I started getting a couple tapes from like Chris Cross and things, you know. And when I moved to the States, it was a whole different game. Like that just opened up to me. I was like, oh wow,
dude, whatever happened to Chris Cross? I don't even know.
They didn't age very well.
No,
I'll tell you
no.
that. They did not age very well.
I just realized that you brought that name up. I'm like, wait a minute, whatever happened to them?
they did. I've seen them not too long ago. They did not age well, man. Like I was like, oh boy. But you know, when I actually could understand it too, because the U.S. stuff, you know, I didn't speak English when I started listening to like the Fat Boys, and I was like, oh my God, like it opened up. Like I you know, like Biggie and Gangstar and all these guys actually said something, and I was like, this is insane. And by me being out of Poland too for a long time by then, like 5-6 years, and not having any contact with those musicians, like the influencers from the U.S. and just me becoming an American and living in an American environment, just when I started rapping in Polish again, like people are just like, what is happening?
Oh, because you started doing that here in the U.S.
Yeah, because I was in New York, which had a huge Polish population. In Greenpoint, I think we had, I don't know, between 500,000 or 750,000 Polish people in the neighborhood.
Wow.
And then in Chicago, where I was before, they said close to 2 million. You know, so it was a joke that like 1 out of 3 or 4 people in Chicago spoke Polish. So any government place, anywhere you go to, 1 out of 4 or 5, they speak Polish. So it was huge. It was a huge, you know, scene. And a lot of them left back to the Union, you know, when the European Union opened up. But I, but my musical thing was like right before then. So we still had streets full of Polish people. And it's just, I don't know, it blew up way more than I thought. Like we had the major TV station from Poland come to the U.S. to make a documentary about us.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
It
was, yeah.
This is crazy.
And it was one of the most watched shows in Poland for like 6 months. Like they kept on rerunning it. Because everyone was just
that happens here in the States all the time, right? You got these certain shows that just don't die; they just keep going. I mean, if it's got the right amount of viral appeal, people just roll with it.
Yeah, I guess, there was something about like this guy with like this kind of like American accent a little bit when he's talking in Polish. And like, and, obviously I was rapping about different things, right? Because, growing up around Chicago and in Brooklyn, like, it's just a different feel, different vibe, right?
Oh,
and
it's
when you're
legit,
like,
urban influence, right?
Yeah. So they were just confused, like really confused. And like, but it took off. I love that, man. Because I did work in the music industry in the US for a while too. I was a sound engineer.
Yeah.
In my early 20s.
Independent, obviously?
I was independent, but I've worked at one of the bigger studios, which was Unique Recording, and I got to meet my heroes, man. Like I met the Lost Boys and Raekwon and MOP and Alicia Keys and Jay-Z and Gangstar, T.I. Like I worked with all these people, right?
Alicia Keys is legit, man. Her vocals are just ridiculous.
She was actually one of the nicest people too. Like, I've had the displeasure of working with Lauryn Hill, and the pleasure of working with Alicia Keys.
She's an angry woman. She was
a very angry woman, yeah. This was like the Fugees reunion.
I love the Fugees. I love the Fugees.
Well, the reunion didn't happen, and people are like, oh, all these beefs were happening. Dude, it was just so petty. Like, she came to the studio once, and the grapes were soft, and she just touched them and walked out.
What?
Like the whole day was paid by whatever, it's Sonya or whoever, and she came and she's like, I don't like these grapes. I'm not going to be here today. And, all the other guys like Wyclef and Predator.
Why live your life like that? I mean, I listen, I know you hear this all the time. I love you sharing this, right? Like money and fame, people say change people. And I say, actually, no. It just brings out maybe more of who you truly are at your heart. Money should not change things. So
it does, because the filter comes, like when you got the FU money, that's when the filter stops, right? And you've probably thought about this, like sure. Like in the beginning you have to like be correct about things, because if you don't, this person's not going to buy from me, these people will maybe, it's like Scott Adams, right? When he started talking about Trump, all his speaking gigs and everything disappeared, right? But he's got FU money from Dilbert. He's like, I don't I do whatever I want. But that's a different stage. That's when you can say those things, like there's probably 10 marketers, like, very low, thinking the same things, but they can't say anything that they feel, because, like, what if my community just says, no, I have no money and I go broke? Like, that's what happens. So, like, with Lauryn Hill, of course, right? So much money, even though she did have some problems with taxes and stuff later on. But, at that moment, so much cash, I don't care. Grapes are not good, I'm leaving. It's fucking nonsense.
That's ridiculous. That happened. A buddy, a colleague and I, we had a chat this morning in a meeting, and he's growing his IT company, and that somehow come up. He's just like, listen, man. He said, there's one thing I love about you. I'm like, why? He's like, and he and I go mountain biking together and road cycling. We're health and fitness friends. He used to be one of my clients years ago, and he's like, here's the thing about you, dude. He's like, you're confident, and if people don't know you, they don't know your loyalties and the fact that you'll go to bat for anybody that you respect and you trust. It's like, well, wow, dude, thank you. He's like, but the side effect of that is if people don't know you, you might come across a little arrogant, because you're confident, you've done your research, you know what you're talking about, and it has that same concept of the FU factor, right? It's like, dude, I'm not going to blow bullshit up your ass, and I know what I'm talking about. Whether you want to take that as arrogance or not, that's up to you. But I'm not here to stroke your ego. I'm going to tell you how it is. You either want that feedback or you don't. But I wasn't like that 10, 15 years ago, kind of your point. It's like you got to, once you know a certain amount of information, you build a little bit of confidence. And yes, money helps with that.
Yeah, I've had that same type of conversation with a couple of friends. But with me, they're like, okay, people might take you a bit as an a-hole or as an opinionated guy. Like, you just have these old opinions, right? But I'm like, no, it's just, like you said, confidence, right? Yeah. Like, if you've been through it and you kind of separated the nonsense from the truth, at least from your experience, like, you can have opinions. And I think, the problem now, and I've been thinking about this a lot too, because I really hate this, be authentic movement.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But what that really means is just have a personality and have some backbone, because so many people are just so soft and they just don't have.
Dude, I love bringing age into this, and not to separate things, but so I'm a classic Gen X, right? I was born in '77, so I'm 41 now. Where are you falling into the mix?
Well, 81, so I'm
Okay. Yeah, you're not far off.
not
So
a far.
I love you bringing this up because it's surprising me because I kind of hinted in the intro, ladies and gentlemen, as you're hearing this, like, dude, you're hanging in Thailand. So
Yeah.
are you seeing this this new cultural thing? We'll call it softness. People are afraid to talk and whatever it is, or what else are they calling it? The Me Too generation, or what? I don't know, whatever they're calling it. There's so many new things they're calling the generation these days. But are you seeing that blend over to where you are now too?
So it's interesting, right? Like we have a melting pot of expats here. I think at this point we have about 2,000 to 3,000 people just that work off their laptops or want to in my city, in my area, at least.
Oh yeah, I hear about that all the time. People love saying, "Dude, if you got the chance and you have the laptop freedom, go to Thailand." It's
yeah.
I hear this more and more.
So I have a good group of people with a lot of backbone, probably 100, 150 people making good money. But I find that these wannabes, these ones, I'm making $300 to $1,000 per month. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of that softness, vegan, hippie, and and goddesses walking around, right? And it's I mean, some of it, like, they stay in their own circles too, but you can clearly see them because the Thais, they're not like that, man. They're very like, the guy is the guy, the woman's the woman. Like it's so strong. Like at the temples here, like the women have to cover up, the guys don't, right? And some of the Western women come in like, what do you mean we're equal? And like, that doesn't fly in Thailand.
Yeah, listen, people need to respect people's culture, right?
Yeah, but the thing with a lot of the Western people is that they try to push their own culture onto others a lot more than they would never want that in their own place, but they do push it on.
I do find that very confusing because obviously, hey, I was born here in the U.S. I'm fourth generation. My bloodline stems back to Irish and German, and hardworking people. I mean, if you study the history of the U.S., I mean, the Irish built a lot of the railroads and did a lot of the mining. I live here in an hour north of Philadelphia in Pennsylvania, and about 2 hours north of me, 3 hours north of me, it's a heavily Irish and Scottish settled area from the years of mining that happened up north here. So it's interesting how cultural diversity has somewhat matured, but not matured, depending on the areas of the country you're in, because we have such a vast country, and you've been here and you've lived here and that, like from Chicago to New York. And I don't understand. I go to other countries. I don't push my views because I'm in somebody else's country. I'm here to learn. Why would I want to tell them what I think? I'm like, dude, I saved that for my country. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like in my experience, like the Irish, it's got to be a cop. In New York, that's the whole thing, man.
Yeah, like Irish. Don't forget the firefighters.
That's true, but it's funny. Like I remember, like once I was hanging out with someone, and they're like, "Are you a cop, man?" And I'm like, "Do I look Irish to you?" And everything just blew up. Because in New York, it's like that was the thing. Like if you say you're Polish, like, yeah, he's not a cop. But
that is interesting. It is interesting. I mean, it's funny because I joke around about the police and fire thing too, and it's I waited to my 30s, and then I actually became a firefighter for a couple of years just for
it's in the blood, man.
And I'm like, it's funny we're talking about that now, and I'm like, yeah, how many Irish firefighters are out there? A few, just a few, especially in the cities. I did the wilderness thing out west, though. I wasn't a city guy, so I was hiking around the mountains with a beard. But it's interesting how that falls into place. So
yeah, but it's the same thing. Like the Polish stereotype is construction workers. Like in Chicago, New York, like that's everyone. They're doing construction, And I used to think it's such nonsense, but I had a family member, like an older uncle, come into the U.S. once, visit me, and the first thing he's like, "These houses are built like shit." And I'm like, seriously, dude? Like that's the first thing you're gonna say?
Yeah, thanks for supporting the stereotype.
I was like, that's horrible. But it was like the first thing coming out of his mouth. He's like, I would build this better. And I'm like, oh my God.
Okay.
Like,
yeah. But here's the best part. Does he have that background?
Well, in a way, yeah. I think every Polish guy in Poland has built at least a part of a house. Yeah, because it's such a big, and I got to tell you though, like I went to back to Poland like 2 years ago to visit. After a while, right? Mm-hmm. And I've seen some of the houses that my family built. Dude, they're like forts.
I was
Like,
saying they're built like a brick shit house. Like you can't take
dude,
it down.
like one of my family members, they have a house. The wall is like 4 feet thick everywhere. I'm like, what are you waiting for? A tank? Like, what do you think is gonna?
Well, let's think about it. I mean, World War I, World War II.
It's true. It's true.
Mean, but maybe you want to build a wall that can withstand a ballistic attack. I don't know.
Well, he told me this house is going to be here in like 500 years, and I'm like, I get it. I get that thinking, but I was like, my God, compared to like the U.S. ones, like I used to always wonder, like back when I was little, like Arnold would, hit a wall and it would break. Like he would break his hand in Poland on the wall. It'd be nothing. But I did kick a wall in the U.S. before, and yeah, it went straight through. It's true. We do, our walls are not meant for staying around for a long time, right? We just, you can run through the wall.
It is funny. You go to Europe, and especially the older parts of the cities, they're really beautiful, well-built architecture. So
it's true. Yeah, it's just different.
Do you see some of that in Thailand at all?
In Thailand, everything's built to last 5 years.
Okay.
Like this.
I mean, unless you go into the old temples and stuff like that, those are beautiful. And
those are beautiful. Yeah. But like the houses, it's like the shortcuts they take here are unbelievable. Like in the US,
is there zoning requirements? Is there building codes? Probably not.
It wouldn't pass anything in the US. Like none of them. They're just like, okay, we can do it this way, and you just like, yeah, this is why like walls collapse after 5 years.
So what I'm hearing is, you probably don't have any construction clients to try to improve the quality of their brand. Or maybe you do because they look at their design and they're like, okay, we got to build a brand somewhere else because clearly pictures of our construction aren't going to help. I don't know.
Oh, dude, like the Thailand is so different. And, so with China too. Like that's why, like a lot of the people in the US don't understand, like, when there's like a pushback against these countries. But let me like tell you this in Thailand, and people would not let this fly in the US. As a foreigner, you cannot work here. You cannot work at certain jobs. They're only reserved to Thais.
Oh.
If you have a company, you have to employ 9 Thai people for every foreigner just to make sure they get jobs.
Wow.
You cannot own land. You can own land under a business, and U.S. people only can have a treaty so they can own a business, but you lease the land. You can actually own it.
Interesting.
When you go to national parks, foreigners pay 5 or 6 times what the Thais pay. There are a lot of small things which just would not fly.
Well, here's the thing, though. I'm actually not against any of that. I'm reading between the lines in that, and that they want to respect, their country. They want to respect the people who were born there and have helped build.
Yeah. It's fine. But I'm saying, like, when we talk about like equality of trade, sometimes, right? Like in China, I've had a lot of people run from China recently to move to Thailand because they're taking people's properties.
Yes.
They're killing their businesses.
It's legit. It's still a communist country. I mean,
yeah.
China,
But I'm just
China
saying,
controls everything.
Yeah. So it's, like a lot of things out there, like you can't start a business in China. You can't even advertise to Chinese people because they won't even let Google or Facebook in. It's just, it's very different. Right. So sometimes when I hear like, these poor Chinese, I'm like, you have no idea about these people.
It's funny because one of my biggest clients is in the HVAC, like the heating and air conditioning industry. It's my biggest contract. And when I meet a manufacturer who says, "Oh, well, we have our own factory in China," and I'm like, "Yeah." Well, what do you mean? I'm like, "Well, you don't." I'm like, "You might manage or control a building that does your manufacturing in China." But in the end, China owns the land, they own the building. You're just leasing space. I mean, you don't technically, they love to stress this point of, no, it's our building and it's our procedures. I'm like, in the end, it's still Chinese. So I don't know. That's up to you, bro.
Yeah. No, it's not, to really go against it, even though I do like bringing them down to their knees a little bit because they've been way too aggressive with, whatever they're doing. But I've actually heard of people, having their whole lives in China, business people, Western business people with families, and they would leave on a vacation. They came back and their visa was all of a sudden denied. Their businesses were taken over by locals. Like they just take their shit, Yeah. So it's, you kind of, have to like really understand what's happening before, people start.
You're not seeing that in Thailand at all.
No, Thailand's a little different, but if people have ran to Thailand from China recently, and, the embassy here actually put a code red, like don't go to China. You might not be able to come out.
Wow.
So it's, some of these countries here are still, not as friendly as, because living in America, like nothing's happening. Like we have problems because we have no problems.
Good point.
Like a lot of the time I'm like, we would not be talking about this nonsense if there was an actual conflict going on.
Yeah.
But, we're so soft now. Like nothing's happening. Everything's taken care of. Amazon delivers. Whole Foods delivers. Like you don't even need to leave the house anymore.
I was joking around with a new author the other day on my podcast and show. I was like, your book's on Amazon, right? And she's like, oh yeah, because she sent me a Barnes and Noble link. And I was like, she didn't send me the Amazon link. So I had to ask. I was like, you do know that nowadays here in the US, unless you're on Amazon, you don't exist. And she laughed. She's like, no, trust me. I made sure that book was on Amazon too, because you are right. Amazon has become a superpower. So
it is, man.
From a marketing and branding platform, it's like, if you want distribution, get it on there.
Yeah, I've seen the jokes recently. Jeff Bezos was about to go off the list in like a week because he got divorced and she's taking half. So I've been hearing a lot of jokes about it. I'm no fan of Jeff Bezos, so I laugh along with it.
Yeah, it's interesting because as a business and marketing guy myself, I joke around with people because I'm like, I personally don't step foot in a Walmart. I love where that company came from and its origins and how they had a beautiful way they grew their brand. But then once they went hardcore corporate, I mean, if you're a startup and you're creating this amazing product and you decide you want to sell to Walmart, they will bring you to your knees and make sure that they make maximum profit and you make pennies on your dollar. And next thing you know, you're basically serving Walmart. And I see that possibly happening in the Amazon space.
Oh, it's happening.
What's that?
It's happening.
Yeah.
The same thing. Amazon controls some businesses completely. And, I had this stance on Walmart just like you before. But a few years ago, I took a road trip from Chicago to Vegas.
Okay.
Right? And on the way, I stopped in places I would have never stopped otherwise because they were just on the way. Mm-hmm. And a few of these towns, I stopped in. I'm like, so where can I get some food or shop? And, dude, the only store in the entire town was Super Walmart.
Yep.
It was it. Like, they really had nothing else. I'm like, well, what else is there? Like, no, that's it. So I was forced.
Part of that story I'm wondering is, did they have something before? Because part of the Walmart story is, well, the small businesses all got pushed out because they couldn't survive next to something like a Super Walmart.
They did, because, I like to drive around a little bit when I'm in these towns. And, one of them I really remember because I drove through this street, which used to be their old district, like the downtown area.
Yeah, like their downtown Main Street. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was all shut down and abandoned buildings, and I'm like, wow.
Well, I'm starting to see some exciting shifts in that. I mean, where I live here, again, it's an hour north of Philly and about an hour and a half just west of New York City. So we're in a sweet spot. Mm-hmm. And it's been happening in our area for years. There's been a lot of resurgence back to that downtown appeal and trying to bring the small business love back to the community because there is a different connection there with the consumer. And there's a whole different level of marketing there, which is funny because when I was reading through your bio and your information, I love the fact that you also don't mind chatting about how internet marketing has positively and negatively influenced how people do business these days.
Yeah, it's true. And I really like that resurgence too. I've seen it around my parents too, because they live an hour from Chicago and, their downtown area was dead, like completely dead. And I came back a year ago to go to the Traffic and Conversion Summit. And I stopped in and I was like, wow, there's a lot of stuff happening now, which I love that. I really like it. Like, look, there's a space for Walmart still.
Sure.
But I just choose not to, go in there if I don't have to. Like, I just, it's the same feeling as you have. Like, Amazon or Walmart, like those are my last resorts, when I do a lot of things.
Although I do like this new, what is Amazon calling it? It's something specifically for small businesses. They've launched it for about 20,000 small businesses. I haven't heard if they've really rolled it out mainstream completely yet, but it's to allow small local businesses to obviously put their storefronts, so to speak, on Amazon, and you're looked at differently. It's not the traditional Amazon product search world. I forget what it's called. Maybe you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I've heard about this, but because I've dealt with Amazon for a while with the Kindle books and some selling stuff, and I always feel like, what are they trying to steal from these people now?
Yep.
because in the beginning, like with the Kindle business too, like, oh man, it was a great business, but then they started just going nuts, man. Like, oh, we're going to take your commission off. We're going to stop this. We're going to stop that. We're going to control this. We're going to do that. And I was like, man, like these guys, when they need you, you know, it's great. But when they don't,
yeah,
they just
you
become
get replaced in a heartbeat.
Yeah,
well,
but it's like the way they treat you.
And then like Amazon started doing the whole Amazon Basics thing where like I'm shopping for a tripod for a camera. And then there's an Amazon Choice or an Amazon Basics like branded one. And I'm like, what is that? I mean, what they do, buy somebody else's product at pennies on the dollar, just slap their name on it. I don't understand what that is. Like
So I have a lot of friends selling a lot on Amazon, like, you know, these $1 million revenue businesses. And what Amazon does is when you go selling on Amazon is they use you as market research, right?
Sure.
So for example, let's say you're selling jump ropes or something like that, right? Mm-hmm. One day when they figure out you're a bestseller, you're going to wake up and there's going to be a same type of jump rope where your buy button used to be with a basic strap on it. So they just go to their Chinese manufacturer or Vietnamese and, you know, just create the same product and sell it for less.
And they'll sell like $20 cheaper and you think you're getting a deal.
Yeah. So it's anytime you're selling with them, like they are using you as market research. So the more successful you are, the more likely Amazon will cut under you and you know, and just make their own product. So they're dangerous. You know, that's why I always feel with these mom and pop businesses, like what are they trying to take? Like, what do they need?
What I'm
worried
about want? Then. And actually, what I was thinking of, it's called the Amazon Storefronts. It's called Storefronts, one word. And they've launched it for 20,000 US-based small businesses.
Right.
And it's interesting because like they're obviously promoting it to say, hey, if you're a small business and you're trying to increase your revenues and your sales, well, now you're no longer restricted to surviving just in your local town, right? We can give you an online footprint. But it's like, to your point, it's like, okay, but what is being sacrificed now with all that data that you're now giving them? They can now see inside the small business space and what's going to come out of that. So
it's not even just the data. You remember the Toys R Us story, right? With Amazon.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like Toys R Us is nothing now.
Yeah. But, you know, back then, they just didn't feel like creating their own online marketplace. And Amazon's like, we'll do it for you.
Mm-hmm.
No problem. Like, we can just use ours. You know, we're such good guys.
And then what?
Yeah, and then what? Then look what happened. But you know,
that name has been around for decades. And now I drive past the stores, the one here in Allentown, Pennsylvania. It's just sitting there empty, you know, closed down.
Yeah, it's insane, right? Like that was like my favorite store as a kid. Like who didn't like Toys R Us? Like, yeah, definitely the departments were messed up. You know, it looked like a warehouse. But as a kid, you're just like, look, this is like, you know, a Christmas store, you know, whatever. Like this is like the best thing ever. But, you know, later I realized like, yeah, they did mess up a lot of things. But, you know, going in a partnership with Amazon was their main mistake from what I've seen. That was the biggest blunder they had. But, you know, that's what happens. Well, you either do your own work or someone else will, you know.
If you get lazy, I think that's where we're going with this here is like, I think they didn't want to innovate. And so they took the lazy route and didn't realize what they got themselves into. And then once they were in too deep, they couldn't dig out.
But that's in any business, right? Like when you think about smaller businesses, like that's what we deal with every month, you know, like, you know, because like we all go through these ups and downs, right? Like one day you get like, you know, a ton of sales, then, you know, then you don't. But when you're on top, when you're riding high, it's like, yeah, you know, let's slack on the sales marketing, on the prospecting. You know, we don't need to do that now. We're doing well. And then you don't realize that, like, you know, starting from scratch with prospecting, you're like 6 months behind. And I have some friends that, you know, went through that recently. And I'm like, well, yeah, that's what happens. Because now they're whining, you know, like, oh, I'm not getting sales and prospecting so hard. I was like, when did you stop? You know, like 6 months ago. I was like, well.
And actually, just for fun, because I haven't done it yet this episode, I love doing screen sharing during the show. That's why I do video for the YouTube people. So again, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check them out at smartbrandmarketing.com. But I love your tagline here. So is that why you're all about no BS marketing? Do you call your friends on their shit? And like
I do, man.
You got lazy, bro.
It's not even just friends. Like, so I'm in the marketing online courses space now, like heavy. We're really growing in that. Mm-hmm. And I sometimes see someone from like the Philippines or somewhere be like, you know, just we'll charge you $500 and we'll get you traffic on Facebook. And I just call him on that bullshit. I'm like, look, you don't realize it. Like, it doesn't work that way. Like, not only are you going to lose $500 with this guy, you're going to lose another 500 of the money he spends and gets you nothing. Like, you're going to be out 1,000. Like, I call them out, man, because they'll say, like, I can 10x your business. And I'm like, show me those numbers, because I've been in it. Like, I know how it works. So I don't do it a lot because I'm busy, but I do call people on their BS a lot. I'm like, dude, like, come on. Like, there's a lot of people that are still gullible, haven't been around the block. Like, they might actually take you on this offer and lose a couple $1,000. Like, I've been through it.
Small businesses they get desperate.
Yeah, like recently I seen an SEO business, because I've done it for so long. Like, someone coming up with a blog network. I was like, oh, this seems like something that failed 5 years ago and ruined like most people's lives. And he's like, oh, stop, man, you're ruining my ad. I was like, dude, your ad showed up on my Facebook feed.
Yeah.
I can say whatever I want.
That's true.
And I've seen it. We lost probably $20,000 4 or 5 years ago because these things shut down. And now he's, but the thing is, these cycles, right? Like, new people come in, they forget what happened. So now, this guy's,
You're a fellow podcaster, right? So it's the same thing in the podcasting space, because like it's the same business model, right? People see this new innovative thing, but is it being built sustainably? Like, I started seeing people, I forgot a couple of the companies, but next thing you know, you see, free data or free hosting. And I come from the IT hosting world too. So I know how much that stuff costs. Bandwidth. Oh, you get free bandwidth for your podcast. I'm like, okay, but then where are they going to make the money back? There's no way. Like, so I've always paid to play. That's like, you got to have skin in the game. Nothing comes free. And the next thing you know, these hosting platforms who are giving you free bandwidth, all of a sudden a year or two later are gone, or they're shutting down. And now you got to migrate your podcast or migrate your site or whatever. It's like, guys, like, you got to be careful with that free bandwidth stuff. So, and that's just,
wow. I didn't even know about this.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Trust me, I'm a geek. Like, I might be a health and fitness nut, but when I go to invest my time into something like launching a podcast, I did a ton of research before I launched in September 2016, because I wanted to I don't like getting blindsided. And now, granted, I probably should have launched in maybe August, but because I started getting that paralysis by analysis, and then I pulled my head out of the mud, and I'm like, all right, dude, just launch, take action. You know enough. You protected yourself here and there. You got a good hosting platform. Let's just go. So, but there's other people I know that have fallen down that hole. Next thing you know, they've had to migrate their site, and they don't know where their files are at, and they're all this craziness. I've heard horror stories about this stuff. So
that's insane. Yeah.
Yeah.
When I start businesses, I go down the rabbit holes like that. But with the podcast, it was nothing like that. I was in Bangkok at a conference, and the conference organizer, he's a good friend of mine. He's like, Tom, you should just start a podcast. You talk a lot of shit. And I'm like, that's the dumbest thing ever. And the next week I had a podcast.
And here, ladies and gentlemen, you can see that on his site too. And actually, I'm doing some screen sharing for the video feed for the YouTubers. So yeah, I mean, you've had some good names on here, man. Like you get around. So
yeah, building your network is the number one thing to focus on in business. There's actually Dan Andrews. He's the one that told me to start the podcast.
That was him.
Like, dude, that was him. Yeah. Dan's a good friend, and he just sold his business too, which it really. We have some interesting talks, right? Because now he's like, dude, why did I do that? I had a great business that worked by itself, and now I spent all this time trying to find a business like that to invest in, and there's nothing out there. And it's sometimes you just but when you're in this world, you hear these things. So
does he have some regrets?
Quite a bit, man. He wrote a book called Before the Exit. I think that's what it's called, and he talks about this whole journey of selling it. But now he's starting a new company. But his main thing is like if you ask him about that main regret in business, he just sits there quietly, and I'm like he wrote a book about it.
So there's definitely a pain point.
It's a pain point. And, but sometimes, and that's why that episode was called Stay on the Fucking Bus, is he was explaining to me, like, Tom, like when you get into business, you're going to have to level up and go through different stages of the business, and think of each one as a bus stop. Okay. Right. And what we usually do is when we get to that third stop, we look around and see other people riding in much faster, nicer buses, and we get off that bus and get on that one to only realize that at some point we're going to be on that third stop again. You know, and to break through, sometimes you got to stick with it and break through these walls. And, you know, he had a wall in front of him he didn't want to break through. He was on like the 10th or 15th stop, though. It was pretty far out.
Yeah.
But it's the same, you know, logic, though. And then, you know, he got off the bus.
Well, so
and now,
go ahead.
And now he's back at, you know, stop one.
so here, I've studied the entrepreneurial space for a while, right? And you've been around the block longer than me. So, because I actually came from the jobby job world and had the careers and all that stuff before the firefighting, and then, you know, I had that was my little escape for a couple of years, and then came back and did some of these, you know, started getting more independent. But the thing I've learned is that there's really two types of companies that an entrepreneur starts. It's, are you building a company for legacy, for the long haul, or are you building a company to be sold? I mean, I know that sounds really simple, but would you agree or disagree with that?
There's a third one.
Oh, interesting.
The lifestyle business.
There we go. Okay.
Right. And that's what
we like lifestyle. Where are you going with that one?
So a lot of people around me, what they want to do is they want to be able to live and do whatever they want and have businesses run themselves. And those are lifestyle businesses, right? You put in very little effort because, you know, creating SOPs and systems, like we're all obsessed about this. And that's the business he built. And he built it so well that he really didn't have to do a thing. And it was working well and growing money, you know. But to make it bigger, which, you know, hanging around other successful business people, sometimes you feel like a failure just because someone's making, you know, $10-20 million more than you. And you just like, you know, if I can't break through it, the main way I can make this money is maybe by selling the business, right? Because you get the multiple.
Yeah, but then you don't have the annual consistency, right?
Yeah, but
you're taking the fat upfront paycheck, and now you've lost the annual residuals.
Yeah, so, you know, the faulty thinking there was that I can take that upfront and invest in another business just like this and grow it again easily, you know, to this point. And that did not.
And he couldn't find other companies like he did.
Yeah, he can't find anything like that. And it was very interesting, too, because when he was trying to sell this lifestyle business, people were not wanting to buy it because, like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, no owner required. Like, this company's growing. There's nothing I can bring into it. Like, a lot of people had a challenge with that, you know, because, like, when you buy a business, often it's like, I'm going to improve this and grow it by 15-20%. But this thing was working so well by itself, like, people were looking at it like, this is not possible.
So he just didn't think, wait a minute, I've got this puppy on autopilot. Cool. I'll just go ahead and start another lifestyle business and keep doing this thing over and over again. And I'll have 5 to 10 on autopilot. But that didn't click, it sounds like.
Well, you know, there's something about focusing on the one thing too. You know, when I've done this couple puppies at one time, and, you know, there's always points when things start breaking and like at bad times. And they often happen at the same time, and you get put against the wall. Like, okay, now 3 of my businesses are really hurting and I got to fix them all, and there's just no way in hell.
Is that so you're hinting at the lack of focus, right? Because maybe you've diversified too much.
Yeah, so, you know, I do get this, like, you know, like James Altucher always says, like, have 7 types of passive income. I'm like, I've been in this game long enough. First of all, there's no such thing as passive income. And
yes.
7, and 7, it means you are really playing with fire.
You're spread thin.
You're spread super thin. Like, you're juggling balls, like, you know, that are covered in oil pretty much. And the thing is, you know, some of the most successful people I know around me, and one company is the Empire Flippers. Like, they've, you know, been saying focused on the one thing for a long time. They grew from nothing in the last 5-6 years to a team of 150 and the top fastest growing companies on the 500 Inc. or 5,000 Inc. It's a huge, you know, company now. And, but they've been consistent, just focusing on one thing. And I got to tell you from my experience too, from going from juggling 3-4 businesses to just 1 or 2 now, things are growing so much faster. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense, but it does, you know? Because before I was like, you know, have these passive incomes and just so easy to grow things and bootstrap them. But just by focusing in, like, the leaps you make every month is incredible, because you're really in, like, you're making partnerships, you're creating, the different products, everyone knows what you're doing. That's a big thing too, right? Before it's like, what does Tom do? Like, I don't know. Depends when you ask him.
That's a good point. Yeah. I mean, it is nice to know, like, people, there's a term, jack of all trades. And I've joked around that I've been a Scott of all trades, but I try not to do too much at one time. And there's actually a great quote. I can't remember if John Lee Dumas did the acronym or if it was Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income, but it was the acronym FOCUS, which is, literally focus on one course until success. So there's a simple saying right there. Like, you can't do 3 startups at the same time. I mean, you could try.
Yeah, and I know both of these guys. And Pat's one of his favorite books is Essentialism. It's the same thing as The One Thing. That's a book also, but it's the same concept. At John Lee Dumas, I've spoke with him. I had him on the podcast. I've spoke with him at the World Domination Summit. Yeah, and that's a very structured and strategic guy, focusing on one thing too. Like, everything goes around his flagship product, and it works, man. Like, I remember he was in the same group as I'm in, the entrepreneur group, and he was there. Like, I still remember his post, like, guys, I'm thinking of starting a daily podcast. Will you come on my show?
Well, the funny thing is he's now changing that. Did you hear that?
Yeah. He's going back to like 3 or 4, but now he's charging like $5,000 to get on that podcast.
I know, right? Because he's got the brand growth. Because he was on my buddy Michael O'Neill of the Solopreneur Hour. He was my first episode. He was my coach to help me get the podcast going. And so he was on one of Michael's recent episodes for 2019. And John Lee was talking about that. JLD's like, dude, he's like, it's 2,000 shows later. It's time for a change. And I think he's even going to a longer format too.
Yeah. I actually spoke about this with him on my show, because he was hitting a plateau, and I was talking with him about that, and I'm like, what's next, John? And he's like, well, that's a good question, because he sort of played out all his moves with the format and what he was doing, and it was a lot of money, but it's, he just didn't see how he can sustain it or hustle harder, because sometimes it's like, just hustle more. Well, that doesn't always, it's not always viable.
You'll eventually burn out. There's only so much hustle to be had.
It's like with squats and deadlift. Like, okay, so if I want to get stronger, what do I do? Do them twice a week? That's how people break their backs, Like, you can only do so much. You need that rest recovery period. And with John, I think it's the smartest move, right? Like, his income will go up and his workload will go down. Mm-hmm. Who doesn't want that?
Well, plus he's already put in all those reps, so to speak, right? You got 2,000 shows out there. That's the beauty of podcasts. That's evergreen content. It's up there. You don't take it down. It's there. So,
dude, I can't even. I got 100-something episodes, and I'm like, dude, I did 70, I think, last year, and I was like, man, that's a lot. And I look at some people like John, and I'm like, dude,
you're going to be probably right around 250. So I've released 2 shows a week since September 2016. So, I started with that and I stayed with that. I think the Christmas to New Year's transition, I actually skipped 1 or 2 shows for the first time in 2 years. But yeah, like I literally just aired episode 245 today as you and I were talking. So
wow. Yeah, I took a year break because I was, when like I told you, I started a podcast just for shits and giggles, right? I was like, whatever. And it helped me network. In the beginning, I was like, wow, I'm gonna grow my network. And then my network was huge. And I'm like, okay, what do I do this for? And then I restarted it again, more focused. And, and this is a thing which, I've been told, but if you're thinking about podcasting, you should really consider, if you want to make it viable, have something to sell on the back end that's tied to the podcast.
I've never monetized my show. I've actually gained a client, a well-paying client, thanks to the show, So it's like, technically, I guess I've monetized it because I'm making money thanks to the podcast. So
right. But what I'm trying to say is, you might not be selling it on the podcast, but it helps you focus in the podcast.
Oh God, yeah.
Right. So if you don't have anything to sell and you're just interviewing or speaking with people, you're going to be all over the place, right? Because you're like, like I'm selling something else, and this is just for fun. And, the audience is like, okay, what is this guy doing? We're talking about startups today. We're talking about e-commerce the next day. We're talking about SEO the next day. Like, there's no common theme, really, other than just, whatever I'm interested in. So, you might think that a Joe Rogan type show is great, because it is. Mm-hmm. But for most of us, it's just not viable.
No, I mean, first of all, Joe Rogan's show crushes it because he already had a brand and a reputation. So that's why people are like, oh my God, how come he's like, you got that nice open format and everything else. It's like, yeah, but I was like, the one thing I've done is along the way is like, if people go to my site, I've actually categorized the podcast so people can go and just listen to health or just look for business or just look for lifestyle, but in the end, all of my co-hosts end up talking about those three areas, whether, even if I'm talking to a doctor, like the doctor is still an entrepreneur, right? So there's different concepts there, but to your point, yes, you have to have some level of direction. You can't. Joe Rogan's a unique character, man.
Yeah, but I've seen it a lot lately with some of the new people, in the scene. They're like, yeah, I want to make a show like Joe Rogan. I want to make a store like Amazon. I want to build a business. And I'm like, so what are you doing? I'm building influence right now. I'm like, what do you mean building influence? What are you selling? Nothing yet. Like going about things backwards, right? Like, if you're starting a new store, you're not in competition with Amazon. You're not even in the same game as Amazon. You don't have a ticket to the game yet.
No.
Don't even look at Amazon. That's the same thing with Joe Rogan. Like you're not even, like think about this past, right? Comedian, popular
MMA fighter.
Yeah, just, like all this stuff. Like you're not even in the same field as this guy. Like, yes, you're using the podcast format, but you don't even have tickets to that game. So, and with business too, like I'm seeing a lot of this, like, building influence before starting a business. So like, what's the point?
No.
Go sell something.
Yeah.
Go sell something and then
I tell people all the time, people are like, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, but I'm building my brand up, my personal brand. I'm like,
what does that
mean? How do you make money, bro? Like,
yeah.
If people go to my site, they'll click, they see that there's services that I do. Like, yes, I've had people call me and reach out to me and say, hey, you do some branding, you do some brand design, or you're a strategist. I'm like, yeah, because that's my education. That's my background. Like, yeah, I've done it. So yes, I don't push it heavily on the show, but people at least know that, yes, I can do that if you want me to.
Yeah, that's fine. Right. But that's the thing. Like a lot of them don't have anything to sell and they're building influence, or like you said, personal brand. Yeah. And I'm like, look, personal brand is a good insurance policy.
Sure. Absolutely.
But so is a good network. Mm-hmm. But if you're not selling anything, it's pointless.
No, it
is completely pointless.
Some people feel guilty about that, right? And I was like, why you feel guilty? You have food to put on the table. You have, whether it be for yourself or your family. Like, dude, it's your show. You should be like, I tell people all the time, like, if I'm going to monetize anything, it'll be myself. I mean, I don't need people. Like, I've had people ask me if they could do an ad on my show, and I'm like, nah. I was like, I don't like your product or your service. And if I'm going to advertise anything, I'll advertise my shit. It's my show.
Yeah, why not?
Right? Yeah. Like, people listen to my show and subscribe for a reason. So eventually somebody's going to be like, oh, dude, I love Scott. I love his show. And yeah, I know he's that guy. Oh, dude, yeah, Scott's a marketing guy. Hey, you should reach out to him. I love his podcast. Right? Like, that's how I've gotten clients. So, because they at least know what I'm doing. I don't just podcast.
The funny thing about, having the podcast, and I didn't really think about this before, but now that I've been really focusing in and like doing more about the courses, online courses and marketing and those people, like I'll have clients who sign up with me. And when we talk, they're like, so I heard you say this on the show. And I'm like, okay, so I don't have to say it again. Like, this is great. Like so many things. They're just like, I've heard you talk about this. And I'm like, well, so we're done for today. Like, you got this.
They needed to throw some skin into the game. And I think they just needed to get into a professional domain with you. And it is funny how that happens, right? Like, dude, you heard me say it to thousands of people. Why is it any different now? But I don't know. They feel good when they get to have that one-on-one session. Hey, whatever locks it in and gets you attention.
Yeah, it's fine. But it's, it's just so funny. I'm just like, wow, I've had been saying that. And you listened. Okay, so we're good. Yeah. That's the power of podcasting, right? And it also does make it easier to get clients in some ways because people are more comfortable with you. They trust you. Yes. One other thing about being able to sell is, being a professional, not being authentic, being a professional. And in the online world especially, that means not going away after a year or two, like you said, with these free hosting things.
Oh, yeah.
And what's the best way to prove that is by having a podcast or some kind of a show for a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. And people are like, wow, this guy's been in my face for so long. He's not going anywhere. I can trust him.
Yeah, like, I mean, there you go. You're over 100 shows. I'm over 200 shows. Like, dude, we're not screwing around. Like, okay, like when I commit to something, I'm committed. And plus I also have fun with this. I love having conversations like this. So like, I literally say that on my show. I'm not BSing my listeners. I'm like, if I didn't enjoy doing this, I wouldn't do it. Life is too short. Why would I keep doing something? That's like another one of those definitions of insanity. Like, why would you keep doing something you don't enjoy?
Yeah, but there's a huge group of, especially in the online marketing space, of people who come in, try to get quick money, and then just can't make it, and just they disappear, right?
Oh,
and
you mean like ClickFunnels?
Well, ClickFunnels
nothing against ClickFunnels. It works for some people, but I'm like,
they're more of a cult.
Everybody's obsessed with ClickFunnels right now.
They're more of a cult. It's a little different. It's like CrossFit, except online.
And I can agree with that, because people bust up CrossFit all the time, and I've been doing CrossFit because I found it since I was firefighting, and it made me strong and made me a safer firefighter. But you're right. There's a lot of people who just think it's a cult. And I'm like, well, at least in the CrossFit world, at least it's a healthy fit cult. I'll go with that, right? ClickFunnels, man, it's like people going to these like giant conferences. Like, you got to come to the ClickFunnel conference. I'm like, okay.
Well, look, with CrossFit though, it depends on, the trainer. Because I've seen people in Thailand especially getting hurt a lot under one trainer and then doing well on a different one. But I remember for 3-6 months, I used to always laugh, like, if you want to go get hurt, go join CrossFit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You are right, because I'm actually a certified trainer in CrossFit. And
so there you go.
I tell people, like, dude, when you look at going to a new CrossFit facility, you look at 3 things. You look at the quality of the coach and their skill level. You look at the quality of the community and the people that are there also. And then obviously the programming and how they're designing the workouts. And are they rotating the programming properly so you're not burning out certain muscle groups? And yes, all of those things come into play. It's not just, I'm just going to go do CrossFit. Like, no, dude, like, do your research. Make sure you're comfortable there. Make sure you like the community, the people you're surrounded with, because it is different than a traditional gym. There's actually a community. It's not just a bunch of people walking in with headphones on.
But that's the scary thing of it too, right? Like, I've had a lot of injuries from sports, right? Mm-hmm. And I have my routine, I'll do heavy deadlifts and squats and things like that. But then I see, these videos of like someone that's new, out of shape, going into a CrossFit thing. The social part, everyone's like cheering them on, do a snatch and with like something. And I'm like, why in the world?
No.
Would you, like, even now, if someone told me in my gym, go do a snatch, I'm like, and why would you ever want me to do that?
Yeah. I tell people all the time. Those videos do send a bad signal, and that's the sad part, because as a trainer, I don't train full time anymore. But I was, I just coached a class yesterday for a friend of mine. He's like, hey, dude, he's the owner of one of the gyms I drop in at, and he's like, hey, can you cover a class? I'm like, sure. I used to coach there. So, but I always, if I see a new face, I spend a few minutes with them. Like, hey, I don't know you. What's your pre-existing conditions? Do you have any injuries? Where's your training at? Where's your skill level at? Because I'm going to make them scale and adapt the work. I don't want them coming in and just doing it at the prescribed level that an advanced athlete is doing. You're from a different walk of life. It's okay.
But I've seen that. Like, I had a buddy that was, doing all these snatches and overheads, and he was walking in pain on painkillers all day. And I'm like, what are you doing? Going to CrossFit tomorrow. I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, why would you want to do an overhead? Like, why do you need this? Like, No,
dude, like I said, I was telling you earlier, like, I just did a competition on Saturday and we placed 3rd. But here's the funny thing. I had an injury from a different thing that I was doing because I'm a crazy mountain biker. And so I took the whole week off. I spent the week going to get massages, chiropractic care, and trying out that cryogenic thing, to help reduce inflammation. What the hell? So I was like, I'm just going to let my body heal. And then I showed up and did the competition, and we placed 3rd. So I was like, cool, and then I took yesterday off. All I did was coach a class, and people are like, oh, you're not going to work out. I'm like, no, I just did 4 workouts on Saturday as a competition. I'm good. I'm going to take a rest and recovery day to let my body heal. And then I went to the chiropractor this morning. I've got a wellness practice built into my lifestyle. So people need, I agree with you, man. People need to understand the importance of rest and recovery, not just from a physical level, but going back to business, to your mental level. Dude, you can burn out.
So, like my girlfriend, she's really into Muay Thai. Right?
Oh,
She's always training it like for hours, and she's Thai. And the joke, like they don't know anything about CrossFit really, but her from seeing some of the people around, she says that's where the overweight people go to mess around, and for me, when you mentioned ClickFunnels, I'm like, that's just where the newbies that don't know any better go to start their first funnels, And the whole funnel thing, like, come on, it's just a sales conversation. It's nothing new. Like when, someone's like, you need to build a funnel. I'm like, well, what do you think what we have is? Like
a sales process is a funnel. You're just using a new buzzy keyword.
Yeah. So it's the same. Yeah. It's like funnel. I'm like really? Like,
dude, it's like keto right now. Like I live technically a ketogenic lifestyle, but people think keto is the new thing. I'm like, dude, do you realize that the ketogenic lifestyle or the ketogenic diet or whatever you want to call it was started back in the early 1900s by a cancer doctor. They used it to fight cancer before all this drug crap came in. This isn't new. This is actually a proven methodology, but thanks to social media and ignorant people, now everybody's making it like the paleo thing, or I don't know, all the other things. I'm like, guys, like at least do your research. Like the ketogenic lifestyle is actually a legitimate thing. And next thing you know, I'm going to start seeing freaking keto cookies and keto cakes and whatever kind of other moronic thing someone's going to try and slap together and make money off of. So
they have those. They have the keto cookies. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
I'm like, there's no such thing as a keto cookie. It's a cookie. Like the whole point of keto is to not have any way, shape, or form of anything that could be converted into a sugar. Like there's no way you can make a dessert just a fat. I'm sorry, it's not dessert. I'm sorry.
No, they have it. Hold on. I looked this up not too long ago. Someone told me about it. Keto,
and more power to them. But again, what are you doing? Like, I don't eat dessert. And people are like, oh, you're depriving yourself. I'm like, dessert is not food. So great. You're trying to make people feel better. You're just keeping people hooked on the whole concept of dessert. So when they get weak, they're going to go and do some other kind of like bad dessert. Like, I don't eat dessert. It's not food to me. It's not fuel. So you can go ahead and make your fatty cookie. I'm not going to eat it.
Yeah, but it's funny when you mention that because I just seen it. Keto cookies.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, anyway, yeah. I'm sorry. I grill a beautiful steak, or I will make my bacon and eggs, or I love. I mean, it's not in Thailand, but I love pho, the brothy soup with
the Vietnamese soup. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's so good. Like, dude, I just had some last week over in New Jersey. It was a beautiful pho restaurant, or pho, however you say it, pho. And I made sure, I was like, listen, I don't want any of the noodle stuff in there. Just give me all that beautiful broth and the meat, and give me the extra tendons and ligaments. Like, give it all to me, man, because that's all good connective tissue.
And the MSG. They always put a handful in Vietnam.
I did ask. They actually did have on the menu. They did promise no MSG. So maybe this is a new thing. They're trying to help improve their image. I don't know.
So here's a funny thing about pho. I went to Vietnam. Went to one of the best pho places, and I'm like, yeah, let me get some pho. And everyone's laughing at me. The whole restaurant, right?
Okay.
And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, let me get some pho. And it's a tonal language, Vietnamese is a tonal language. So you have pho and pho, right? And I said pho. So a pho is a hooker. A pho is a soup. So,
okay, hold on. I got to clarify this. So it's not pho, it's pho?
So, yeah, it's like the goes down a little bit in tone. Pho.
Oh, it's a tone thing. Oh.
It's a tone thing. So if you go pho with the going up,
so it sounds almost like fuck. I get it.
Yeah.
Oh man,
so,
it just blew my mind. I might have said that way, but luckily it wasn't a Vietnamese girl serving me, so she probably wouldn't have caught me on that. So
yeah, these fun experiences happen a lot when you travel the world.
Dude, again, that's why I want to make sure our listeners knew you were dialing in from Thailand, because you've literally created that lifestyle business model where you can work and play from anywhere. So
yeah, and I've done that too, and it's been beautiful, man. I lived all over Europe, all over Asia, lived in Japan, lived in Taiwan, lived in Vietnam, lived here, lived in Berlin, Prague, Warsaw, Lisbon, Barcelona. Like I've lived in a lot of spots, that I wanted to for a couple months each until I get tired of them. But Chiang Mai is one of these where like, I don't know, once you come here and leave, like there's just something pulling you back. And although I don't stay the whole year, I'm here a lot, between 3 and 9 months, depending on the year.
I was going to ask you that, like, what's your average stay time?
Yeah, because like this year, in a month, there's going to be burning season here, which, Chiang Mai is in between mountains and they start burning the rice fields and things. So the pollution gets like crazy, out of control. So we go down south by the beach for 2 months. And then, I usually do a little stint in the US, then in Europe, and come back around August or earlier, depending on the month, on the year. But yeah, it's a great place other than March to May. Like you do not want to come here March to May. Like it's just so bad. Pollution levels at like Shanghai, and then Mumbai type, so like you can't breathe at all. So it's a great place other than those 2-3 months.
Well, that's good to know. Do not go during burning season.
You do not want to go during burning season.
Well, my next travels are in the next couple of months to be going to Canada, so they don't really have a burning season up there, so I don't have to worry about that. So,
well, when they had those wildfires, man, that was a burning season.
Yeah, like, but see, that's what I did for 2 years, so I already lived in the smoke, and because like everybody's like, "Oh, you don't wear an air mask?" I'm like, "We were wildland firefighters. I'm already hiking with a chainsaw and like 50 pounds of gear on my back. Where am I going to fit an air tank and an air mask?" It's like, no, you just breathed it all in. It was totally not healthy for you at all. But that's what federal wildland firefighters do. So,
well, when you want to talk about impossible, in Vietnam, I seen 2 ladies carrying a queen's mattress on their scooter.
Now that's impressive. I mean, wait, between the 2 scooter or on one scooter?
On one scooter. I'm not sure how they were doing it, but I just seen
really long arms.
I have no idea how they were doing it, but I just seen this scooter with these 2 ladies and a mattress, and I just like, I don't know. I was more shocked by what I seen that I didn't try to figure out how they were doing it.
I mean, yeah, I think you'd pretty much get like, I don't know, stopped in your mental tracks with that one.
Yeah, I'm like, what am I just seeing right now? And yeah, and stuff like that happens all the time, and they'll carry crazy things. I'm like, how is this happening? There's like 5 people on a scooter carrying like a door. Like, how is this possible?
I have seen some interesting videos from that side of the world, and it is impressive how they choose to transport things. And hey, they pull it off, man. I mean, it's totally
it's amazing. It's just, like what people can accomplish, like when they have to, it's just incredible.
Oh, here you go. I mean, this is not a mattress, but I just quickly did some Googling. This dude's got a whole lot of, looks like zucchini or squash. And
yeah, there you go.
I mean,
nothing wrong going to go there, right?
Dude, like you turn a little too fast. That's a lot of payload. Like you're going down, man. I mean, come on.
And it looks like an old bike too, probably like 115cc. Like that thing is not meant for.
No, that thing looks beat. And he's got something like sticking out of his mouth, like a pen or something. So hopefully it doesn't fall on his face.
Yeah, of course. Why not?
Oh,
yeah, but it's like just some of the stuff you see is just like, man, like these people, they're good, man.
Hardworking people.
Yeah, it's definitely not the Walmart crowd.
No, and exactly. You see a scooter at a Walmart, it's somebody who weighs like 400 pounds. Like those are the people that should be walking. It's like, why are you in a scooter? Like you actually should be taking a stroll. And
I actually went back to Walmart to pick something up for my parents last time I went, and dude, it was sad, man. Like I usually, like I get it, with the weight, people go through different things and they gain weight, but when you see someone on one of these scooters, like they can't even get off of them, and they have like a 2-pound slushie in their hand, and you're just like, man, like where did we go wrong?
It's called back to marketing. The sugar industry is very good at what they do. And our country is a perfect example. The past 20, 30 years, it's only gotten worse. That's why I live a hardcore sugar-free lifestyle, because everybody in my family is way bigger than me. So there's no proof of genetics. People are like, oh, well, you have great genetics. I'm like, no, dude, it's called a healthy lifestyle. Like, trust me, you could do it too. It's just going to take a little reprogramming and stop listening to the BS marketing that's out there and all the really bad, unhealthy crap. So
this really is the case too, because like in some of these Asian countries, Thailand, one of them, like, you know, the girls used to be like super skinny, all of them, you know, and people are like, wow. But now, since we've got Starbucks, McDonald's, and now Taco Bell's edging in, I think next month or next year, like very soon, and the 7-Eleven culture picked up, like you start seeing like 20 to 30% like really overweight people now too, you know?
Yeah, that's one thing that pisses me off about our country. Like, we're supposed to be this amazing influence in the world. And where unfortunately people are paying attention to the bad crap that we created. Fast food.
It's advertised well, yeah. Like Starbucks is like such a glamour symbol in here, right? Like the average wage for, like, let's say a service worker, it will be $300 a month, right?
Okay.
And a cup of Starbucks is $5.
Okay.
So, you know, if you divide that, you know, someone's making $10 a day, but they have a $5 Starbucks thing in their hand. So think about America. Like, you walk around with a $50, $60 drink in your hand. That's a status symbol, right? Yeah. Like, who else is going to drink that? Like, when I went to Warsaw, they had these small cans of matcha tea in a can imported from Japan, and it was $100. Well, an average person makes around $40, $50 a day. So carrying that in your hand, you know what I mean? But at least that's healthy.
Thank you. I do agree with that. Like, I mean, again, if you're going to get a Starbucks coffee, you just get the coffee with nothing added. Like, don't let them add their pumps of sugar and other crap in there, because that's where the obesity is coming from, is the sugar. So
yeah, I only drink matcha now. We actually found 2 fields in the north of Thailand where they grow green tea, and they actually make their own matcha. So we went there, we seen it was legit, and I'm like, wow. And one of them actually tastes very close to the Japanese one, because I lived in Japan, I loved their matcha, and I was like, it's very close. And I just drink that. I think that's like, you know,
you can't beat that freshness.
You cannot. And you know, even the pre-workout I have, it's called Pre-Caged, and I found it to be the only natural ingredient pre-workout on the market. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I really do try keeping on, like, my energy levels and then just the brain fog is gone. Like, it's just the clarity really depends on the supplements and the diet. Like, you know, I've tested so many things, and like, oh my God, like there's such a difference, you know, even like my injuries, you know, like the collagen and something else I'm taking, like for the knees and stuff, like you can feel the difference after a couple of weeks. Like,
oh yeah. Like I went back to the way it was when I was a kid. I was born on a farm. So my dad used to have 2 big freezers, and he used to stock it with butcher meat for the winter. So 2 years ago, I started doing that again. I put in a deposit down, and there's a local farm about 2 hours from here that they raise the beef grass fed, and I can basically say, hey, I want a quarter of that animal for me.
Yeah.
And I know exactly how it's raised. And I say, give me the bones too. And I actually do a slow cooker, and I actually make my own bone broth for the healthy collagen. And I want that tissue recovery. I want the anti-inflammatory benefits from drinking bone broth. I make my own bone broth teas. It's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, you know, it's something we have to relearn.
Mm-hmm. Because everybody's like, oh, you drink broth or bone broth? I'm like, well, if you went back a few years, that's the only way you made broth. That's the way all the cultures did it back then. It was like, that's the way broth was made. You took the entire carcass, and you made, after you had dinner, you took the leftovers and you made broth. And now we have 2 different kinds. You have the manufactured factory crap, and then you have legitimate broth that was actually made from, you know, with bones in the pot. So.
Yeah. But it's, you know, like I said, it's something we have to relearn, because, you know, like the food industry, you know, they kind of get us to, like, you know, get everything processed and eat clean. What they mean by eat clean is like, you know, you shouldn't see any veins or any bones or anything around. It should just be like a little breast meat or something, which is great. But that means we lost a lot, you know, and you got to re-input that in your diet. And it's, you know, it's not as easy, you know, like it took a lot of research. It took me a couple of years to really figure out and nail down my supplements that I take every day. But, you know, they made a lot of difference. And it's just,
I tell people all the time, what you just said is you took upon yourself to become basically your own inner physician. Like it's your body. Take responsibility for it. Do a little study. There's no excuse nowadays, going back to podcasting, right? Like, dude, anybody can download and listen to a podcast. It's up to you to choose to commit to do that. Like, everybody who says that they walk around ignorant, they say they don't have the time to learn something new. Come on, man. Audiobooks, YouTube, a podcast. Like, there's free content out there. Just take advantage of it.
Yeah, like I just had a friend who he owns an agency, and he came up. He's like, "Hey Tom, like I've been taking Ambien for like
Oh,
2 years now, and I gave him some of the supplements that I take in the evening. One of them is like Power Sleep PM,
mhm.
and look, the worst thing in there is soy. But comparing that to Ambien, it's nothing.
I am anti-soy, but I would have to agree with you. That's I would probably do the same thing because I actually one big thing that I recommend for before bed is a properly designed magnesium supplement. I mean, that improved my sleep exponentially.
Yeah,
Magnesium
so that's what I told him. But so I told him to take some ZMA,
Mhm.
some rhodiola, because if you can't stop thinking, rhodiola is a very good calming down supplement. And since if someone's been on Ambien for 2 years, they need something stronger. So that's the Power Sleep PM, right? It's all natural, but unfortunately, I don't know why they keep making the gelatin around the actual pill with soy in it. So but it's cheaper. But if you really think of like prescription versus this, I'm like, look, a little bit of soy will not kill you. It's not going to make you a girl, so you should be okay.
Well, hands down, you're comparing a supplement to a drug. I mean, that's a hard
Yeah.
drug. Like people trip out on that stuff. So
Yeah, but for me, even that soy bugs me. Like that little
I agree.
part bugs me. But comparing it to a prescription, I'm like, dude, you can't lose with this one. Like it puts everyone I know to sleep, and it's super healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But I told him like my problem with it is the soy. He didn't care. Like he's like, whatever, soy. Like I drink soy, whatever. I'm like, well, yeah, but just saying, like, I have to put that in because it does mess with my head every time I take it. I got to take some stuff. I got to early wake up, but I'm taking a little bit of soy. So, but when you do research, we do get to that stage where like a little too maybe into it.
Yeah. I mean, but hey, at least we took the time to care, and if nothing else, I've been doing it for so long now that I've had to catch myself, and I choose not to offer the information unless somebody actually seriously cares and actually does want to know, and they actually ask me, because I'm tired of trying to help people and if they don't want to be helped. You can't help everybody. So
yeah. So he actually asked me because he's like, dude, like you look much healthier, and I can't get off of Ambien, and I was like, well, just copy what works for me. Should be okay.
Yeah, and here's the other thing: give yourself enough time to make the transition. A lot of people get very impatient, and if you're on a pharmaceutical, that's a hard drug, dude. It might take a little while to come off of that. So, I wish.
But it's just, it's sad when I hear like someone put him on that in the first place.
Well, I tell people all the time, a pharmaceutical anything is basically a pharmaceutical Band-Aid. It's not. You haven't found the root cause. You got to find the root cause and then work on that.
Yeah.
Pharmaceuticals they're just treating symptoms. They're not actually finding a cure with that. So that's just my point of view anyway.
So the interesting thing about Thailand is that you don't need prescriptions for anything. So it makes it even that tougher, right? Like I can go to a pharmacy here and be like, give me an antibiotic, a painkiller, a sleeping pill, and whatever. It doesn't matter. Like I can grab it off So the scary thing that they do here is like, people go in with a cough and she's like, take an antibiotic, it'll go away quick, because it's cheaper than maybe the cough medication.
Yeah, right? But is that one formulated for you? I mean,
yeah, but I'm just saying, so that's a big difference in the market here. Like in the US, we sometimes bitch and complain because like, what do I got to see a doctor to see a specialist to get something that I know I need?
Yep.
So in some ways here, it's like, okay, I can just go grab it. But then if you don't know what you need and you ask them, a lot of the time, like, you might get some like hardcore dude. Like
so basically everything is over the counter over there.
Basically, yeah. So one time, like I had a real bad back pain, and I just went to I didn't know. I was like, just give me something. She gave me a muscle relaxant, right? And I call one of my buddies. He's a Muay Thai champion from the States, and he's like, dude, like they give that shit to like professional wrestlers here. How did you get? I'm like, well, I just went to the little lady by the counter, and she's like, here, take this. You'll be fine. And she was right. I was fine.
Wow.
I didn't feel anything.
I should hope so. Jeez. That's awesome. I mean, it's scary, but awesome. I mean, it
just, blew my mind. Like I was not used to it, and I'm like, wow, they just give you anything. So now I'm much more careful. Like they'll give me something and I'll go on Google and be like, what is this?
I was just saying, I feel like you have to almost Google while you're standing there before you even leave.
Yeah, that's what I do.
Oh, jeez.
They'll give me like 3 options, and I'm Googling for side effects. I'm like, what are you giving me? What's the dosage? And like one of them, like she did give me antibiotic, and it was like 1,000 milligrams of like Oxy something or Moxie, I don't know. And I looked on Google, and they're like, oh, people only take 500. Like, why did you give me 1,000? This is like double the dose. She's like, oh, it's cheaper. And I'm like, just give me the 500.
Thank you. I do appreciate being able to buy in bulk. I just don't want the bulk to lead to possible death.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. But it's one of the beautiful things about Thailand.
Jeez. Well, dude, this has been awesome, man. I'm actually glad we got to wrap it out. I think it's funny you brought some of this in at the end. I thought that was awesome because it's good to. I love world culture, and I think more people do need to get out there, travel more. Even if you can't do it for your own business, maybe even if you are an employee and you're not an entrepreneur, just get out there and see more of the culture. And you've been around the block, man. I mean, it's cool to hear that you've adapted so well. I guess.
Well, you know, I think if a lot more people did it, we would have much healthier filters that we see the world through. You know,
yes.
Like sometimes when I'll hear someone from the Midwest that never left their city give opinions on politics and world anything, I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
Just stop.
Have you traveled?
Well, you know, it's just like, I know anything you're going to say in the next sentence will be nonsense. So let's just stop this right now.
Wow. That's, I mean, you have the right to say that. You've been around more than I have. I mean, I'm looking forward to either later this year or next year, finally getting deeper into Europe of all places. I mean, I haven't done enough world travel yet. So I never try and talk about it. I did study world cultures at the university, but I was like, I'm still not going to talk that much about South America and Central America until I finally get a chance to go there more. So,
okay. And see, this is the thing that you notice in any industry anywhere in the world. Someone like you that's had some knowledge is probably not going to start talking much. But the biggest idiot on the block that hasn't seen anything, that's the one.
Has an opinion.
That's it's not even an opinion. Like, that's the one that's going to start debating. You know, because it's not even opinions. They just want to debate something. Maybe they heard on Fox News or something. You know, like I've seen it when I was small in school. Like, all the people that didn't know the answer, they were always screaming stuff out. Yeah. And I was one of these kids who just didn't want to be bothered. I usually had the answer, and the teacher called on me at the end and like, Tom, just tell him what it is. And I'm like, fine. And I said it, and I stayed quiet again. But, you know, and sometimes they brought our parents to watch this, and my parents said the same thing. Like, it was hilarious. Like, watching like everyone scream, and at the end, just, you know, the person just like pointed at you and like, can you just?
Well, and the sad part is they're screaming to make their point, which is an unsubstantiated point. It's like, I can understand if you want to do that, if you actually have the research and you're making a stand, but you're literally trying to reinforce something you actually don't know just to win an argument or win a debate. I'm like, I remember debates. Debates were meant for intelligent people to debate actual topics that they've actually studied or their point of view, not, I'm just going to just throw out a debate on bullshit.
Yeah, but back then, the winner of the debate was the only one to get an award. Now, everyone gets an award.
Don't get me going on that. Don't get me going on that. Oh, my God. Oh, you participated in a debate. Oh, well, everybody leaves with a participation trophy. Listen, if you don't...
look, but that's the difference, right? Yeah. Like, that's why everyone's like, you know, I want to just scream and participate, and I win.
No.
Well,
this adds to the weakness of society. So
it does, but it's, you know, it's one of the things which I just feel like, you know, how is this going to work in the real world? Like, when you start a business, like, do you think you're going to get anything by participating?
God, no.
You know, or even in a career. Like, in the music industry, it was so ruthless, man. Like, people would, like, the shit they would do to get the session with a big star. Cutthroat. I mean, you know, you have, like, dude. Like, it was crazy.
Survive or die mindset, man.
Like, people would lock you out the building. They'd send you to get something and lock you out just so you can't come in, and they'll get in on your session. Like, people, it was ruthless, man.
Well, see, first of all, you got to respect that. That's got some ingenuity to it. I never would have thought about that.
I've done that before. That's why I mentioned it.
That was you, dude? Oh, come on. But you know what? You probably learned that from somebody. So,
I did, but it was one of those things. I'm just like, hey, why don't you get a soda or something? Man? They wanted in room B, and just lock around. I'm on this, and they're like, "Where's our engineer?" I'm like, "I don't know. I'm here.
I'm ready to work, bro. I'm here for you. Let's do this."
Yeah.
I don't.
All right, man.
I like that though. I like that. That shows your hustle, man. That's just because like people want everything handed to them. You can't have everything handed to you, dude. Sometimes I'm sorry, you got to put in the sweat equity. You got to put in the time. Yeah, there's a few shortcuts here and there, but what do you learn? What do you learn from the shortcut? What do you learn?
There are really no shortcuts, man. Like last year, I shut down one of my businesses, and I had a month where, I had to make quite a bit more income to keep my team going. And, it was back to we got to grind it out now. It was back to the 12, 14-hour days and creating partnerships, doing all types of crazy things I could, writing content. Like I would write 15 pieces of content in one day just to see if it's, it's going to work. And man, there's not the shortcuts, man. They're not.
Well, my hint at a shortcut is something professional. Like, for example, building and influencing networks, like actually helping other people. Like it's not actually a shortcut. You actually have to put the work in. But that is an example of a proper shortcut. You go and help other people in your industry and you build a reputation. Like if you help others, I truly believe in that full circle, right? If you help enough other people, it'll come back to you. But that's going to take work. But technically, that can be looked at as a professional shortcut, except you are putting in a lot of work to get there.
Yeah, so like sometimes when I look at my network, I'm like, wow, that could be a shortcut, but because I can launch or sell almost anything. But when I look back and how much just effort I put into that network, I'm like, dude, that's not a shortcut at all. That's like an 8-year shortcut, It's not like all of these actual shortcuts, dude, they take a lot of effort, Yeah.
That's like you and I can probably agree on these never-ending Facebook friend requests or LinkedIn requests. I'm like, guys, just because we have mutual friends doesn't mean we're supposed to be friends. Like if you're going to at least try and friend me or LinkedIn connect me, could you please at least personalize the invite? Yeah. Not saying, oh, I see we're in the same influencer circle. You should definitely check this out. Would love to be on your network, or I'd love to. I'm like, that's not. No, like, dude, come on. Why don't we meet at another conference and then maybe I'll accept your connection, and maybe we'll have an actual intelligent conversation. How about that?
That's something I've been drilling a lot too, man. Like prospecting is being reborn lately. Like there's a lot of authors and sales guys talking about prospecting, but I'm like, I didn't realize it died, but it did, because of just the easiness of, ads and things. Like a lot of people don't know, they didn't go through that stage of having to prospect before they, like my sales careers, when I went through all these businesses before, and got training, dude, it was getting like, I was sent on the streets in New York, like Brooklyn, Bronx, Harlem, like wherever, Astoria, and like go hit the doors.
Yeah.
Like
the law of averages, right? How many slam doors in your face until you get that win?
Well, dude, in Brooklyn, it was a lot of yelling and cussing you out too, man. Like, oh, you look like a sales guy, and like just,
yep.
But still, like,
you had to knock. You had to hit the doorbell. You had to knock.
Yeah, but it surprised me just how many people are starting to run businesses without learning how to properly sell and prospect, and then now I'm seeing all these books about prospecting, and I'm like, whatever happened to that? It's why do we even need to talk about it so much now? But I do get it,
because people haven't passed on the knowledge. That's the problem. Now everybody's like, oh, well, I got to build my influencer network, so when I launch my ClickFunnels, there's enough people to share it and then hopefully send people into my funnel. And I'm like, oh, okay. Before there was funnels, there was a sales process. And before there was a sales process, the first step of a sales process is get your ass out into the street and meet people. Like that's how you gain influence. You have to physically connect with people. Like wow, I'm impressed with technology now. We can virtually do it, but you still can't beat the power of talking to somebody in person, or at least on like a webinar call or something, right? So
that's interesting. It just clicked when you said that. Like, I've thought about it now. Like, wow. So when someone's trying to influence, I'm like, oh, so you mean you're going to try prospecting? Mm-hmm. Because, when you just said, like, they're building an influence to sell the ClickFunnels. Well, what do you need to do before selling? You need to prospect.
Yeah. So you can have the coolest looking ClickFunnels ever, but if nobody knows about you, your product, or your service, How are they supposed to find that funnel?
Yeah, but I just didn't realize that people replace the word prospecting with influence.
But the sad part is,
Yeah,
that's what you and I are talking about that. That's not a proper replacement. It's actually, if you look at the
it's
definition of those words, they are not a synonym. So
yeah, but now, like, when all these people are saying, like, I'm building influence before you're selling, like, no, you should be prospecting right now.
yeah. Yep.
Stop trying to build influence about nonsense.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to build a YouTube channel and influence. I'm like, dude, you don't even know what people want yet.
Nope. I talk to my client all the time. He's just like, dude, he's like, I love it. You know, YouTube's not growing fast enough. I was like, well, one of the reasons why is because you don't generate enough new content. Like I'm running data off of old videos. Like I need new content so we can start seeing what your new followers want to actually, what are they drawn to the most? So if you're not generating new content, what the hell do you expect? Like, yes, like let's get some surveys out there because he's got a lot of followers. And I'm like, dude, you got a lot of followers. You do well with your podcast. You do well. Like we've grown his Instagram. You know, his Facebook has grown too. But I'm like, YouTube's been the slower growth. I'm like, it's a different medium. There's different learning happening there. I was like, you haven't put out new videos in a while. Let's put up some new content and let's do a test and let's see how that acclimates. There's data to be looked at, but I can't look at new data unless you give me new stuff to run the data off of. Cracks me up.
But YouTube, man, the algorithm is ruthless. Like I seen a video about like a 7-year-old influencer, right?
It's crazy.
And she was generating like 1 to 2 million views with each video. You know, she was just posting stuff like from some rich family in Mexico or somewhere. But this is the craziest thing. I didn't realize this. Like she said, you know, her mom died. So for 2 months, she was not creating content because, you know, it's a little kid, obviously, right? You know, and her brother's the one filming it. But when she came back after only 2 months, the new videos only started getting 10 to 50,000 views instead of 1 to 2 million. So the algorithm hits back so hard by you not feeding this machine, right? So it's, yeah, but that's ruthless, man. You know, like, so you need to understand too, and I tell these people when they build these brands, like you are starting a never-ending job now because with something like YouTube, you need to create these 10-minute videos until you die now, and if you stop, you're going to get hit back. And I didn't know it was that bad. Like when this girl mentioned it, I was like, oh my God, that's huge. That's 95% views gone.
Well, the funny thing is I don't care how many followers I have. I care about the quality of the followers. But because I've been publishing since episode 51, I've been airing videos of the podcasts. And I didn't care. I just wanted to push. I just used YouTube as a place to store the videos. That's all I cared about. And then all of a sudden, in the past like 3 to 4 months, boom, huge uptick started happening. All of a sudden, I jumped hundreds of followers in a few days and crossed 1,000 followers barrier. And then next thing you know, I'm getting contributor reports from YouTube. And I'm like, oh, now I'm seen as a contributor or a content generator because I've consistently given them content for the past year and a half. So, but it took a year and a half for that all of a sudden that algorithm to find me. It cracks me up. So you're right.
Yeah.
But my thing is this, I'm already podcasting anyway. So that's why I was like, dude, I might as well record video while I'm at it. Because some people are visual or kinesthetic learners and they might be drawn more to a video than just the classic podcast audio. So
that's interesting. Maybe I'll move to a video podcast soon too, just for that reason. Because we've put some episodes on YouTube, but it was just, you know, like a image and talking just to have it on there.
A lot of people have done that. I don't like that. So, but here's the flip on that. Ever since YouTube launched YouTube Red, if you pay for YouTube Red, well, now YouTube will play in the background on your smartphone while you're doing other things. So that's what we're about to see a big shift in the podcast market because there's so much YouTube users out there. Well, great. I can just stay on YouTube and I can, you know, bounce from podcast to podcast and play it in the background if I'm a YouTube Red subscriber. So
yeah, interesting. Yeah, I've been thinking about that too because with that image, that's why we stopped too. I was like, that's stupid. You know, going on the visual medium with you know just an image, that's like the, you know, just didn't make any sense.
Well, my thing was I got frustrated with Skype, so I started using Zoom anyway. I'm like, well, I use Zoom for webinars and training my clients and running training events and stuff too. And I'm like, wait a minute, why don't I just do it for the podcast too? You know, it's actually not an expensive platform. I get better quality. I've never had a tech issue. So I was like, and I'm already talking to you for an hour plus, so why not just hit record on video too? And then some people might appreciate some of that transparency like into your world. So, yeah. And some videos have outperformed others, and it just depends on the influencer I've had on the show. So, I'm playing the long game. I want to see, because I know YouTube's always got something else up their sleeve.
Yeah.
I'm playing the long game for this podcast market to see what happens. So.
Yeah, it's just super smart, because I've been thinking about it too. Like the podcast is, going pretty strong, but I always feel like you said, I hate Skype. I'm getting into Zoom more and more. I had issues, I think, every single time in the last maybe 2 months with something happening. Yeah. It's just not. I don't know what happened to it. It used to work great. I
dealt with it for the first 50 shows, and then I was like, "That's it. I'm done."
Yeah.
I was like, I don't care. I literally, when people invite me on their show, and they're like, "Oh, what's your Skype ID?" I say, "Well, here's my Skype ID. Also, I'm happy to host you on my Zoom platform." Because I would rather do it on Zoom. So that's just me.
That's smart. Yeah, I got to pull a trigger on that too, because I've been fighting, still. I'm just, it's one of these things where, you're used to something, and changing platforms is like, oh, no, what else?
But it's not that hard, actually.
It's not. It's not, because I already do mastermind calls on Zoom. I just don't do it.
Do you have the free platform, or are you paying for the entrepreneur package?
The free, but I can easily pay for that one. I think it's...
So, and here's another little trick for you. If you want to pay premium, well, I still have the entrepreneur package, but I tested it a couple times, a couple of months, but I never actually committed long term. But if you pay the extra $40 a month for their webinar feature,
yeah,
well, now you could actually go live to Facebook or YouTube live while you're doing this. So I could actually live stream this. I could have live streamed this tonight to YouTube or Facebook, one or the other, while you and I were doing this. So
yeah, I've seen Thinkific, which is a course creation platform that I partnered with recently, and they took me on, and that's exactly what happened, man. They're like, just call in on Zoom. We're about to go live on Facebook and YouTube, and I'm like, wow, that's it? It's like, yeah, just using Zoom. I was like, that was the first time I've seen that.
No, I know the guys from Thinkific. Yeah, I've been waiting. I've been putting it off on pulling the trigger and start doing more training content online and I like the Thinkific platform.
Yeah, but it's just, they kind of opened my eyes when I seen that happening. And I'm like, and I just tested it too. Like they're interviewing me. I put the YouTube on. I was like, yeah, it's working. Wow. Yep. It's all from Zoom. So it's but cool. They're awesome people. Yeah. We're doing an online course conference in Chiang Mai in October, and they're probably going to play a big part in that.
I like those guys. I met them the first time a couple years ago at the Thrive Make Money Matter event out in San Diego. And then the past couple years, we've hosted it in Las Vegas. That's put on by Cole Hatter, and that event keeps growing every year. That's for teaching entrepreneurs how to make their money matter more, balance your initiatives with, not-for-profits and stuff like that. But dude, the level of influencers and speakers that they've increased to has been profound. But that's the first time I ran into Thinkific was they were one of the sponsors. So,
oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah. It was cool. And again, I like their tech. I like their platform. It's if you want to build online educational content, I think it's powerful. So my one client uses it for their I don't know, he's got like audiobooks or something all integrated into it. So yeah.
Yeah, but it's just, they're just great guys overall. Like Teachable is also another platform which a lot of people use, but sure. It might be a more robust platform in some ways, but just the team of Thinkific, they're just so awesome. Like, I got along with a lot of them. It's, and sometimes you got to think, man, like when you're dealing in business, like, do you want to deal with just a good tech or with good people behind it too? It's.
Yeah, like I'm a big fan. Besides them, I'm a big fan with Aweber. And actually, Aweber as an email marketing platform is just awesome in general. But they're also headquartered only 45 minutes from me. They're not like a Silicon Valley company. They're actually an outside of Philadelphia company, and they're one of the top ones next to what's the other one, the Monkey one, and all the others. So
the only one I've seen that put some research in is Drip. Just because some of the options. But now that Aweber lets you segment things too. Mm-hmm. It's not as much of a push in that direction because Drip was like the first one, to really segment, but it's much more expensive than Aweber.
Oh God!
But the MailChimps and all the other ones, like I don't know, man. Like the mails just don't go through as well as Aweber. I think they're the most powerful platform.
Aweber's core policy has never changed. They really screen their clients. They don't want spammers coming on. They want good, clean lists. Every time I add a new update to one of my lists or something else, if it's a bulk update, they pre-screen it before the upload even finishes it. They're always doing a sampling. So that's one way you keep your network clean. And I migrated a client over from not MailChimp. I don't know, one of the other bigger ones, been around for years and they suck. But dude, his open rates almost doubled just by coming onto the Aweber network. So there you go.
Yeah. It's that's the thing, right? Like the mix of tech and the people behind it. And I've been thinking about that more and more too, because like before it was just like the local businesses, you want to support them, but now with tech, it's like you gotta kind of think that way too. Like which one do you want to support? It's the same idea. Just because we don't see them, there's still people behind all this tech.
Yeah. I just went live on YouTube today about my laptop bag, the Cocoon Innovations startup company. Like the bag arrived and I started using it for 3 days and the zipper busted. And I emailed them a screenshot from my iPhone of the broken. And literally within an hour, they said, don't worry about it. We're shipping you a new one now. No questions asked, didn't ask for return, nothing. So I was like, dude, I want to honor that because customer service has dropped in this world. And when you see that level of follow through, they want to make sure they have a wow with their customer. It's cheaper to retain a customer than to acquire a new one. And that's how it's done because I was blown away. So I gave them props on YouTube today. So
yeah, before you wrap it up, like with customer service, I got to mention Patagonia, right? Because I used to, see some of my friends wear those jackets and I was like, $400 jacket, that's dumb. But I'm in Seattle, for some kind of a conference, and my friend Pete, he brings his like completely ripped up jacket to the store, and he says, "Guys, this ripped. I was hiking or something." And they're like, "Fine, pick a new one, no questions asked."
Well, or they have a repair service.
Well, they did not have it for that one, but he just said, "Can you just pick a new one?" And he just walked out with a new jacket, no questions asked, nothing. And I'm like,
yeah.
A month later, I got a Patagonia jacket.
Yeah. We have a lot of Patagonia here. We're big outdoorsy nuts, and my fiance. Now, granted, we look for sales, and I did have a pro deal with the company because I coached ski racing for 11 years. So I had some hookups with them for a little while, and the quality is second to none. The company cares about their footprint. They care about how they get back down in Argentina and in South America, and they stand behind their product. And my fiance and I have both shipped back clothing over the years, and they repair it and they send it back. So, dude, love it.
Yeah, but it just blew my mind, man. And it was interesting too, because my parents have one house in Wisconsin, which is like an hour from Chicago. Mm-hmm. And I drove into Chicago to get my jacket, and I picked a size that's a little too small. And I'm like, I borrowed a little bit. I was like, yeah, I could use one size bigger. So I went back to him like, oh, we don't have that size, but not only will we ship it to your house tomorrow, we'll also return the tax because now it's going to a different state and we don't need to charge you. And I'm like, dude, but to me that customer service was just like, wow, I get it now.
But a lot of companies don't get it. That's the sad part. But see, it takes these experiences like you and I are sharing today to help people realize like, dude, don't forget about the wow experience because look at you and I. However long ago these experiences were, and we're still talking about them.
Yeah, because I'll never forget that. Like he went in with like a jacket that looked like I don't even know. It was just like
it got mauled by a dog or something.
Yeah, but it still had the Patagonia tag on it.
Yeah,
and he just walked out with a new jacket, and I'm like, dude, what is this company? And then I looked at the founder and read about it. I was like, wow, this guy's he's legit.
He has built a true legacy company. That's one thing I love. I mean, and North Face is also a great company. They do some of the same stuff, but Patagonia definitely stands aside, and they've got the reputation. And yeah, you'll pay a little bit more, but dude, I've had the same Patagonia vest for like 6 years. I mean, it's when you get good quality stuff, because I'm a gearhead. When you get the right gear, it'll last. The company is standing the test of time. They stand behind the products. Like I'll keep buying Patagonia forever. So.
Yeah, but the interesting thing is like when you speak with someone, from a different generation, like I spoke with my mom, she's like, why the hell did you spend $400 on a jacket? And I'm like, over the last 10 years, how many jackets did you buy? And she's like, oh, not many. I was like, really? Let's look at your closet. And usually like 50 of these garbage jackets, right?
Yep.
Like each one is like a $10, so we just spent $500. And I was like, with Patagonia, when they say lifetime, they mean lifetime.
Yep.
Because even in 20, 30 years, if anything happens, like you just go and come up with a new jacket. Like you just don't understand. Like these companies, they're not like the companies we're used to. This is like a new, like you said, like a legacy. That's a different type of company.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're investing in this guy's vision, and if you share the vision, plus you have a jacket that's really going to be lasting for a whole life.
Oh, it's a total quality level. Totally quality.
Yeah. But it's like it's not something that like people are used to, because like when my mom was buying stuff from like JCPenney or Walmart, she's like, she knows what kind of quality it is. She knows what kind of return policies they have, how much garbage it is. And I'm like, yeah, see, that's the thing, right? Like it's so hard to shift people from that experience to like what's possible. It's difficult.
It is,
especially when you have that narrative of like, this is how companies work. They're only after your money. They'll say anything to sell you something, and I'm like, you haven't even seen the online marketing space.
And again, it goes back to just like we were talking about earlier, the supplements and all these other things. Like, just take the time to do a little bit of research, and you'll be surprised how your eyes are opened. And unfortunately, some people aren't ready yet. Maybe they're ready in 6 months, maybe they're ready in a couple of years. But I think it's all our personal responsibilities to do just a little bit more research in our lives, and you'd be surprised how your eyes are opened. So,
yeah, I agree.
Well, listen, you're the guest co-host today. We've wrapped a lot tonight. We went super long form. Every once in a while this happens, but it takes a special co-host to do that. So
thank you.
Hey, I love it. This has been awesome. But I asked my guest co-host to help close the show out. Some final words. It could be an all-encompassing message. Maybe it's part of your legacy message, what you've built and what you're trying to do. You've definitely traveled a lot, so I'm sure there's probably some wisdom to be shared there.
The only thing I always tell people in business, especially if they're not successful yet, look, if you don't know how to sell, you're not in business. Figure out what you're selling and who you're selling it to. And if you really nail those two down, you will be successful. That's the whole, basis behind success. So in some ways I can say that, when you're thinking of creating a new product or a service, think about what value are you bringing and how I'm going to distribute this product or service. These are very simple concepts, but these are the fundamentals of any successful business. You just got to nail them down.
I love that, man. That's straight and to the point. Well, listen, hang tight. I'll give you a proper goodbye off the air. Ladies and gentlemen, I already called it out earlier. Make sure you go visit smartbrandmarketing.com. Okay. He's got no BS marketing out there. And I love his final point there, guys, ladies and gentlemen. If you're not selling, you're not in business. I'm a sales professional for many, many years. If you don't know how to sell, you're not ready to be in business. I can reinforce that tenfold. So again, ladies and gentlemen, this show is all about fueling your health, your business, your lifestyle. We heavily hit on business today, but we definitely dabbled in some health, some fitness, and some lifestyle along the way. So thanks for tuning in. We'll talk to you guys again soon.